Do you remember what started the Second World War? Initially, it was just a territorial dispute between Germany and Poland. The Germans wanted back the German territory, which had been taken away from Germany and given to Poland at the end of the First World War. But when the Germans, under Hitler, began taking back that territory in September 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany, ostensibly to protect the freedom of Poland. The Germans had done nothing against Britain and France and wanted very much to remain at peace with those countries, but the politicians of Britain and France had other considerations. The fact that the Soviet Union also invaded Poland in September 1939 was all right with Britain and France. They didn't declare war on the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was for all practical purposes under Jewish rule. They did declare war on Germany because Germany under Hitler had broken loose from the grip of the Jews and had freed the German media and German education and German finance and German politics and German culture from Jewish influence, and was in the process of kicking all of the Jews out of Germany. That was the reason for the Second World War, not Polish freedom or Polish territorial integrity. That was the reason why, when in April 1943, the German army discovered the mass graves of some of the 25,000 Polish officers and intellectuals murdered by Jewish communists, and invited the International Red Cross and journalists from many nations to view the evidence. The controlled media in Britain and the United States ignored the evidence and blamed the atrocity on the Germans. That was the reason why, at the end of the war, those countries which had gone to war ostensibly to ensure the freedom of Poland agreed to turn Poland and Latvia and Hungary and the rest of Eastern Europe over to the communist butchers who had carried out the massacre of the elite of the Polish nation. Of course, the communists economically drained and ruined all of these countries. And these communists were Jews, which is to say, the Jews were the prime movers in the communist regimes imposed on those countries after the war, and also were the primary beneficiaries of the regimes. In Hungary, for example, there was the regime of the communist Jew, Mátyás Rákosi, followed by another communist Jew, Ernő Gerő. In Romania, the communist Jewess Anna Pauker ruled the country as first secretary of the Central Committee. In Poland, the Minister for State Control was the communist Jew, Roman Zumbrowski. In Czechoslovakia, the Secretary General of the Communist Party was the communist Jew, Rudolf Slansky. In Yugoslavia, while Tito held the spotlight, the communist Jew, Moshe Fiadi, was the chairman of the National Assembly and president of Serbia. And so it went. And this in a Europe whose Jews supposedly had all been holocausted by Hitler. There were tens of millions of Hungarians and Poles and Latvians and Serbs and other Eastern Europeans under the yoke of communism who were wishing that Hitler had actually holocausted the Jews. These communist Jews were so hated by the Eastern Europeans they ruled and exploited that there was constant turmoil. And after the Hungarian uprising in 1956, many of the leading communist Jews were replaced by Gentile frontmen, while the Jews continued to exploit the people from behind the scenes. Even as the communist regimes of Eastern Europe began collapsing during the last 15 years or so, and their economies were privatized, Jews continued to plunder the people among whom they lived. Using money from their brethren abroad and collusion with their corrupt kinsmen still in the various governments, they managed to buy up the most valuable factories, mines, and other national resources at fire sale prices and then milk them for all they were worth. I apologize for the long digression, but I wanted to make it clear just why so many of our young women in Eastern Europe are living in poverty today and are desperate to improve their prospects, making them easy prey for Jewish slave dealers. It is the Jews who, more than anyone else, are responsible for the impoverishment of Eastern Europe. The Jews, beginning with Karl Marx, invented communism, and then they used it to exploit the Gentiles among whom they lived. My second comment is that the women lured and entrapped by Jewish slave dealers are made doubly easy prey because they never have been warned to beware of Jews. And the reason they never have been warned is that the Jewish communists of every regime in Eastern Europe enacted legislation making it illegal to do so. To warn a young woman never to trust a Jew, to tell a young woman what Jews are like and what they do, is hate speech. And hate speech is a penal offense in every country of Eastern Europe. Jews may not be criticized. It is illegal to tell the truth about them. In Israel, it is legal to buy and sell slaves so long as they aren't Jews. The slave trade is big business in Israel, and it's legal. And these Russian and Latvian and Hungarian girls lured to Israel and forced into a life of slavery and degradation are our people. Among the moral 2% of the U.S. population, there are people who care as much as I do about the fact that their government sends billions of dollars a year to prop up a regime which permits beautiful young white girls to be stripped, raped, beaten, put up on an auction block, and sold to whichever leering, swarthy, hook-nosed kike makes the highest bid. We fight wars to protect that regime from its Arab neighbors. We permit the kinsmen of those who make up that regime to control our mass media of news and entertainment. We condemn the Germans for trying to free themselves from such control. There are Americans who care about these things as much as I do. And by God, we intend to do something about these things, even if we have to do it Timothy McVeigh's way. I hope it doesn't come to that. But we will break the grip of these Jews and their collaborators on our society. Thanks for being with me again today.